This is Land of Havilah, Jeremiah 47. The chapter is a 7-verse prophecy regarding the Philistines. Verse 1. Yahweh's word that came to Jeremiah the prophet concerning the Philistines before Pharaoh struck Gaza. Yahweh says, Behold, waters rise up out of the north, and will become an overflowing stream, and will overflow the land and all that is therein, the city and those who dwell therein. The men will cry, and all the inhabitants of the land will wail. Comment in verse 1, Jeremiah delivered this prophecy before Pharaoh struck Gaza. Gaza was one of the 5 principal cities of the Philistines. We don't have any information about Pharaoh striking Gaza, but that's okay because Jeremiah isn't prophesying about that event in this chapter. He's only using it as a marker of time, as in, y'all remember when Pharaoh struck Gaza, Yahweh gave me this word right before that. The point of the prophecy in verses 2 to 7 is that there's going to be a much more significant war coming to Philistia than when Pharaoh struck Gaza, because Babylon will attack from the north and wipe out all Philistia. We know from history that over the same 19 years that Nebuchadnezzar dealt with Judah, he also dealt with Philistia. And just like Nebuchadnezzar ended up virtually annihilating Judah, he virtually annihilated Philistia. Later, Yahweh put a remnant of the Jews back in the land, but he never put the Philistines back. So the fulfillment of this prophecy will be the end of the Philistines for all practical purposes. Jeremiah prophesied throughout this book that Judah and the surrounding nations had only 2 choices. They could surrender to Nebuchadnezzar and keep living peacefully on their own land, or they could resist him and be annihilated. It must have been that the Philistines kept resisting, because it's clear Nebuchadnezzar annihilated them. In verse 2, floodwaters will rise up. Floodwaters are a biblical metaphor for an overwhelming military attack. Jeremiah 46:7 and Isaiah 8:7. The flood will come from the north, which is Jeremiah's code language that it'll come from Babylon. Jeremiah 25:9. In verse 2, the men of Philistia will cry out. The inhabitants will wail. And going on about the horror of it, verse 3. At the noise of the stamping of the hoofs of his strong ones, at the rushing of his chariots, at the rumbling of his wheels, the fathers don't look back to their children for feebleness of hands, because of the day that comes to destroy all the Philistines, to cut off from Tyre and Sidon every helper who remains, for Yahweh will destroy the Philistines, the remnant of the Isle of Caphtor. Comment in verses 3 and 4, the Philistines will hear the noise of stamping hoofs. They'll witness the Babylonian might, their strong men, their chariots, and the rumbling of their chariot wheels. Fathers will be so feeble they won't be able to help their children. They'll run and not even look back at their children. It'll be a day of destruction for all Philistia. Babylon will even be too much for mighty Tyre and Sidon further up the coast. Tyre and Sidon won't be able to stop the Babylonian army. They'll come right on down and devour Philistia. In verse 2, Caphtor is an island in the Mediterranean, Jeremiah 47:4. It was the original home of the Philistines, Amos 9:7. Yahweh will destroy the remnant of the Isle of Caphtor in verse 2, which simply means he'll destroy the Philistines. Now finishing the chapter, verse 5. Baldness has come on Gaza. Ashkelon is brought to nothing. The remnant of their valley, how long will you cut yourself? You sword of Yahweh, how long will it be before you're quiet? Put yourself back into your scabbard. Rest and be still. How can you be quiet since Yahweh has given you a command? Against Ashkelon and against the seashore, there has he appointed it. Comment in verse 5, the Philistines are shaving themselves bald and cutting themselves as signs to their gods that they're in distress and need help. In verse 7, Ashkelon is another principal city of the Philistines. In verse 6, Nebuchadnezzar's war on the Philistines is the sword of Yahweh. Someone wonders how long until the sword is quiet, until Yahweh puts it back in his scabbard. Oh, put that sword to rest, they say. In verse 7, the sword can't be quiet because Yahweh has given it a command. He has appointed it. The Philistine annihilation wasn't eternal and complete to the last man because Yahweh took a remnant to himself, Zechariah 9:7. Jeremiah 48 is next.